Hey friends, Joe here at Reverb. Today I have 6 Line 6 multi-effects processing units, and we are here to figure out which one is going to be best for you. One of the most frequently asked questions I've gotten over the last handful of years is, hey Joe, what do you think about the Line 6 Helix stuff and all the multi-effects processing stuff? And my answer has always been the same. I have no idea because I haven't played through any of it. I have many friends and I know a lot of players that gravitate towards this stuff and have spoken so highly of it, and I've heard stuff and it sounds amazing, but I've never actually plugged in and played until now. So now I've spent some time with all of these units. There are 6 Line 6 multi-effects processors. They're all the top selling multi-effects units on Reverb currently. And when I got that question always, I thought, which one do I dive into? Which one's better for me? And so I thought I would help you, if you're looking for one of these, decide which one might be best for you. So before we get going, just a quick note, this is not going to be a demo deep dive into all of these units. We don't have enough to get into all the sounds here on this table. We don't have nearly enough time for that. There's all kinds of great material, great demos, great shootouts. Check all that stuff out. But hopefully this video, if you watch it first, you can figure out which individual demo you want to go after. If I was in the world of Line 6, which way do I turn and how far down that road do I go? That's definitely the title of this video. Great title, Joe. So a few weeks ago, all 6 of these units showed up at my studio. The Pod Go, the HX Effects, the HX Stomp, the HX Stomp XL, the Helix, and the Helix LT. It was a bit daunting, it was a bit overwhelming. Where do I dive in? Which one do I start with? How do I begin to understand this stuff? I started to categorize things and kind of compartmentalize these units in some different areas based on size, functionality, price, some of the things that one may offer that another doesn't, and that one that doesn't offer that might offer something else that this doesn't. I started to kind of pare these things down in these categories. Where I went to first was, I thought, okay, if I'm on Reverb, I'm shopping for a multi-effects unit, what is the most approachable for me in this moment? I just go to the smallest thing, the HX Stomp, and then the HX Stomp XL. So the first thing I did was I checked out both of these and pared down, okay, what are the differences here? Okay, so first let's get into the similarities. Same processing power, same DSP, same software, same models and effects. We have 126 presets on the HX Stomp, 128 presets on the HX Stomp XL. Brand new, $650, $750 for the XL. But used prices on Reverb, you can find them for much more affordable than that. Let's talk real quick about snapshots, a very valuable tool in this Helix world. A snapshot is kind of like a preset within a preset. So you can have the same chain, the same models, the same effects, and you can have a snapshot within that preset that says, okay, I'm gonna have more gain on that effect, I'm gonna have more delay, I'm gonna have more reverb on there. So instead of switching an entire preset, you're keeping the same block, the same chain, and adjusting all the parameters with one switch. Super awesome. So one difference here is that you can have 3 snapshots per preset on the HX Stomp, and you can have 4 snapshots per preset on the HX Stomp XL. So there's so much similarity between these two units, 126 presets, 128 presets, but all the same DSP and the same functionality in HX Edit in the software. So I thought to myself, okay, well, what is the way that I would incorporate one or both of these into my thing? I would personally, if I went for the HX Stomp, I would probably use it alongside other pedals. I think that this would be a part of my pedal board. I would still have my, some of my favorite pedals surrounding it, and I would probably have this in stomp mode where I would just have 3 different effects with different snapshots as well, assigned to the 3 different foot switches. So obviously, if you took the stomp mode approach to the Stomp XL, you have much more functionality because you have just more switches. So you could literally have 8 different stomps set up, whereas you can only have 3 on the HX Stomp. So if you're using these in stomp mode, then the XL is going to get you more functionality more quickly. And that is an application for live performance, I would say. Like if I'm playing live, I would probably use the stomp along with other pedals. Like I said, it would be part of my pedal board. Whereas I would consider the XL as an entire multi-effects hub, like the entire unit for all of my effects. And that's definitely a big difference. There's a big discrepancy there in approach. Whereas I would have a unit that would take care of all of my sounds versus incorporating this very powerful tool into my pedal board. So again, so many similarities between these two units. They both have MIDI, they both have the same number of I/O. Now, taking that same thought into the studio, amp modeling and cab sim is, on one hand, super useful for the studio, never having to mic up an amp. Then again, on the other hand, a studio is a place where our amps already live. So your favorite amps are already in your studio likely, and so maybe amp modeling and cab sim is not as important to you in the studio. Something to consider when we get into another one of these units that doesn't have amp and cab modeling, but is still really awesome, the HX Effects. We'll get there. For the studio, these things are amazing. And I am thinking about every physical aspect of using it in the studio, literally thinking about having it on my desk versus having it on the floor. It's like a major difference. It's a major different functionality for your creative studio flow, which, as you know, is super important. If I had the XL, this would be on my desk. And if I have session players coming in, guitar players coming in to lay down tracks, I'm gonna be using this, tweaking this on the fly as they're playing, dialing in the sounds. That is not a live application performance. Live application for the XL, I'm thinking of how do I get to a sound as quickly as possible, bank up, bank down, get to that sound, change the snapshot, song to song. Studio, I'm not thinking that way. I'm thinking about dialing in a certain tone, hearing it in the track, switching it up, dialing in something different. And having the XL right there on your desk, right next to your interface, right next to your preamps, your other controls, is super, super valuable, and that can be an awesome tool in the studio. Again, the HX Stomp, it gives you that same functionality, I would say, in the studio. Because thinking about live performance, like I said, I want more switches, I want to get to more sounds more quickly, right? But if I'm in the studio and I'm taking my time and I'm dialing in the screens, the HX Stomp gets me there and it saves me money. So studio tool, I would say the HX Stomp is maybe the way to go. Live performance, that would be a part of my pedal board, whereas the XL would be a multi-effects hub of my entire thing. Okay, so then I went over to these kind of the mid-size units of the bunch, the HX Effects and the Pod Go. Both of these units are amazing. They're awesome. The functionality is so cool. Let's get into the differences. If you're looking for this size, this price range unit, first and foremost, I would say is the HX Effects does not have amp modeling or cab sim. So that could be a pro, that could be a con, depending on the kind of player you are. For me, amp modeling is not as important. I like having an amp around, I like bringing my amp. So it's like, this is an amazing tool for me. This has almost 200 effects built in, 100 of the Helix effects, as well as 70 of Line 6 legacy effects. So all this Line 6 stuff from DL4 and stuff that you already love, that's in here as well. So you don't have to sacrifice getting rid of those with the HX Effects. The Pod Go has all of the amp models and cab sims. In fact, just as much as these other units. So the Pod Go has this extra functionality. You could take this to a gig and only take it to a gig. And speaking of taking this to a gig, check this out. It actually has a nifty handle right there. It's one of the most comfortable ways I've ever carried a piece of gear. It's amazing. It's like I'm carrying a little pedal board, but it's all right there. Another really positive thing about the Pod Go for me is built-in expression pedal. That's huge. The way that I have developed my playing, the way that I approach playing, especially with ambient stuff and all kinds of stuff, slide stuff, expression pedal is a must-have. Now, not to say that I could not have the HX Effects and simply plug in an expression pedal. It's easy, it's right there. Let's talk about user interface. Personally, I love the interface of the HX effects. These individual screens for each switch is massive. And this is coming from I didn't think I was a screens on pedals person. Turns out I am. We all evolve. We all evolve, and Line 6 is just helping us evolve. It is similar to the Helix interface, if you can see the similarities here. It's like the HX effects does not have the amp modeling, but it has this kind of interface that is so awesome. The bank up and down and seeing what each switch is going to do is amazing. Also, major feature with the HX effects as opposed to the Pod Go is the capacitive touch. So you can go to a certain effect, only just touch the switch, not press it, touch it, and then it pulls up editing parameters. Not to say that editing is difficult on the Pod Go. You hold down a switch for 3 seconds and then it brings up an editing screen so you can edit parameters. So we're talking about 3 seconds versus a touch, a split second. Depending on what kind of player you are, depending on how quickly you might need to do that, could be a major benefit with the HX effects. The Pod Go technically has less DSP than the HX effects and also less than both of the Stomps, but the DSP is optimized for the effects in the Pod Go. They sound great. There's no way that I'm recognizing that these sounds are falling short on the Pod Go as opposed to one of the Stomps or the HX effects. Sonically, all of these they're top notch. They're all top notch. That's why this deep dive was more into functionality and setting up different scenarios of approach to figure out how I would use these. A couple more things to consider here, which may or may not be important to you. HX effects, looping functionality is super awesome, very easy. For me, that's a major pro category thing. So I'm just gonna show you here. I'll bank through, choose an effect, boom, hit the mode edit, boom, looper right there. It sets up a record, play, once, half speed, reverse or forward, undo. It's all right there. Whereas the Pod Go, you can set up a looper, but similar to the HX Stomp and HX Stomp XL, you have to go in and to the block chain and add a looper to the preset. Again, it takes 2 minutes to do, but it's something that you have to think about before and say, okay, on this preset, I want a looper. I want looping functionality here. So then I got to go in and drop down and choose the looper as part of a block and get it in there and save it. Major pro for the Pod Go is expression pedal built in. Expression pedal that can be set to a certain parameter, it can be set to volume, it can be set to wah. I don't get that on the HX effects. HX effects, though, I do get, I think, a better interface, better functionality, quicker looping, and more functional editing. Then again, one of the biggest advantages the Pod Go has going for it is that it's the most affordable unit out of all of these here. So you can get the Pod Go new for $500, used you could probably find for $350 or $400. And so that is, thinking about that amount of modeling and effects and functionality, expression pedal, all these things for that amount is pretty crazy. That's insane. Okay, are we good? Shall we go on? Have you already decided? Have you already bought one? Now we're on to the big units, probably what a lot of folks have been waiting for, the Helix and the Helix LT. These are obviously incredible. These are mind-blowing. I plugged into the Helix, and this was a moment of, I am changing. I am different than I was before. I know that sounds dramatic. I have always been an amp and pedal player. Plugging into the Helix immediately made me rethink all of that. And this conversation, I think, is more nuanced than I am this kind of player or I am this kind of player. There are a lot that can go in both buckets, and I'd like to get into that. Okay, Helix or Helix LT. Let's first call out the price difference. Brand new, Helix is $1,700, the Helix LT is $1,200. Used, you could find them more affordably, but there still will be that price discrepancy, I'm sure. Where does that price difference come from? That to me is the LT really gets you almost every single thing that you might functionally need as the Helix does. They have the same DSP, the same number of presets all the same sounds. They have this similar editing functionality. They have the same mother, the same father. They come from the same family. They are so closely united. Some differences are upon look, screens, the LED screens for each switch. And again, I've already admitted to you, now I'm a screens person. I love that. I did not think I was going to. I love it. Getting in here to edit something is just going up here and using the screen and editing on the big screen. It's not difficult to do. In fact, it's very easy to do. One of my favorite things about both these units is that having spent a couple hours with it, I felt like I was 80% in. I was flying around and editing, and it was not this thing that I had made it up to be in my head. You know, I had all these holdups about these units until I played one. Who would have thought? Oh, why don't you play one? Oh, well, there it is. They both have capacitive switching, amazing editing functionality. Okay, some of the differences. The Helix has XLR in. That could be a make or break for you. If you're plugging vocal into it, if you're, XLR in could be awesome. The Helix has more send and return connections than the LT, and the Helix has an auxiliary input. So you have a bit more functionality with the Helix on sends and returns. You could patch in different things. You could take maybe more effects loop type stuff into it. You could take more split signals out of it. This could be your thing, and that could be, like I said, the make or break. The look alone and the functionality of the editing with the LED screens on each switch for you could be a make or break. I know a lot of players, some of my friends are definitely of that mind. They're of that approach where they want that screen, they want to get in there and do the thing. There are a few things on some of these knobs that are so cool that I would have even thought of. So I'm glad Line 6 thought of them. This knob here is a knob. You turn the knob. It has notches on it, but it's also a joystick. I know this sounds so lame to bring up in a video, but literally I was like, I've never seen that. Maybe it's on something else, I don't know. I've never seen that, and when I just started using it, I was like, oh my goodness. I can set up a signal path, I can drop down, set up a separate signal path, combine both of them, get in there, add different types of effects to different signal paths using this joystick and knob. And it's just one of those things that, it's like a shortcut on your, like on Logic or Pro Tools. Like when you learn how to do that, it's like, oh man, that just saved me a bunch of time and I love that now. End of the day, if you're looking to go for one of these bigger units, Helix or Helix LT, which one is better for you? It really comes down to these four things. Helix has XLR in, auxiliary in, multiple send and return connections, and the general user interface, the LED screens. Those are the differences between these two units. Okay, so let's play out a few different scenarios and try to, maybe resonate with multiple kinds of different players, okay? Let's say, we just got done talking about these Helix and Helix LT, right? They're amazing, they can do virtually everything. But let's say you're trying to not spend over $1,000. And so you're gonna kind of rule out the bigger units. Okay, LT and Helix off the table. I'm looking at the Stomp XL, the HXFX, and the Pod Go. If amp modeling is essential to you, if you're spending that much money, you're gonna want amp modeling, then take the HXFX out. You can't consider that anymore because it doesn't have it. Pod Go, HX Stomp XL. Are you a gigging musician? Are you a studio musician, producer? Are you both? If you are the former, if you're a gigging musician, you're on the road, you're doing fly-out dates, you want a multi-effects hub all-in-one with cab sim and amp modeling, I would say Stomp XL is probably your best bet. That it has the most switching, the most functionality. You can make it all yours. You can assign all the switches to different presets. You can have 4 snapshots within those presets. To me, that's like, okay, I would also bring an expression pedal to plug into it, which makes me think, well, then would I want the Pod Go? Because the Pod Go, I can do all those things too. In fact, it has the same number of switches as the XL. So I can assign literally the same amount of presets on the fly and also have my expression pedal built in. Does the Pod Go fit in my guitar case like the XL might? No, it probably doesn't. I got to carry the Pod Go by its super nifty handle on the back. When you think of something that might fall short on one of these units, it also offers something where that the other one doesn't. Line 6 must be smart or something. Or I want to eliminate both those because they're both too clunky. They're both too big, and I want a super powerful machine that I can literally pick up, and if I'm wearing cargo shorts from the 90s, I can fit it in my pocket. Then the HX Stomp is all the way for you. It's everything that you'll need. You can have it in stomp mode and set up 3 effects, or you can bank up and down super quickly and get to any effect, and also have MIDI capability. If you're running MIDI live, you have all the same in and out functionality as the XL and the Pod Go. Then the HX Stomp is for you. Okay, let's flip the script. You are a player that you've got your amp. You love your amp. It's a part of you. You're bringing it to every gig. There's no way you're not bringing your amp. So amp modeling is not important to you. Look at the HX effects. This thing has almost 200 effects, amazing Helix effects, legacy effects, amazing user interface, functionality, looping functionality right there. The HX effects is probably the thing for you. Okay, another scenario. You've got your home studio, you've got your studio, you're not going out on the road, you're not doing fly dates. What unit is best for you? Again, let's take these off the table, trying to spend less than $1,000. What's gonna be best? HX effects, again, I'm thinking about the flow. That's so important to us in the studio, is having the right things within reach to be able to make your flow more efficient. I am thinking about these models up on my desk more than I'm thinking about them as stomp boxes, okay? I think that, again, the HX effects would be probably the way that I would go in the studio. Unless you want amp modeling, then you have to go with one of the others. But like I said, you already might have your amps in your studio. That might be where they generally live, so that might not be as important to you. Helix and Helix LT. You are looking for one of the big boys. You're looking to go all in. Again, studio functionality versus live functionality. Live, this is all you're bringing. You're bringing this to the gig. You have all of your sounds. You do not need to bring an amp. You don't need to bring a pedal board. You don't even need, with the expression pedal stuff, I wouldn't think that you would need to use the effects loop to patch in more effects. They are decked out with amazing sounding effects. In the studio, again, I had this on the floor for a while, and I was, using the expression pedal on a lot of different stuff, making different sounds, looping different stuff. Then I put it up on my desk, and it was like, I am recording things and tweaking things simultaneously, and I feel super powerful. For film scoring, for sound design, this Helix is incredible. There's all kinds of sounds that are well beyond your conventional chorus and phaser and reverb and delay and stuff. There's all kinds of stuff built in here that is just amazingly inspiring. Similar like your pedal board, when you dial it in the way that you want it, you have it all dialed in like that. But you go through the Helix and you save all of your presets into these different banks and all these different snapshots. That is your unit now. That's not just the Line 6 Helix. It is the Line 6 Helix as interpreted by you, which is awesome. Okay, there is all the Line 6 multi-effects processing units. Which one is best for you? Check them out, new and used on Reverb, all of them. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.